But this is why the confusion is going on in the body of Israel. The reason that the confusion is going on in the body of Israel, because this whole thing, the foundation that was laid for us to come forward as Israelites, was laid on Masonic principles, was laid on the Rosicrucian principles, a magical society, was laid under the Kabbalah order and so forth. That was the end.
Commanding General Yahanna will be doing the opening.
We're now going to read the Jesuit oath to gain an insight into exactly how they went about trying to destroy the work of the Reformation. When I warned that we'd be going into some twisted and disturbing stuff, this is one of the things I had in mind. It's an extremely disturbing document, but it's important to go over it, as it doesn't just give us insight into the Jesuits. By proxy, it gives us deep insight into the mind of our demonic enemy as a whole, and the tactics that Satan may still employ today against us. Remember, he has no new tricks. Incidentally, I'll post a copy of this in the notes section of the Fuel Project Facebook page if you want to read it again. My son, you have been taught to act the dissembler, amongst the Roman Catholics to be a Roman Catholic, and to be a spy even among your own brethren, to believe no man, to trust no man, among the Reformers to be a Reformer, among the Huguenots to be a Huguenot, among the Calvinists to be a Calvinist, among the Protestants generally to be a Protestant, and obtaining their confidence to seek even to speak from their pulpits, and to denounce with all vehemence in your nature our holy religion and the Pope, and even to descend so low as to become a Jew amongst the Jews, that you might be enabled
became a Muslim. Your cousin became a Hare Krishna or some other Buddhist. You done been trying, some of you done joined the conscious community. Right. Some of you believe you're the descendants of the Egyptians. Right. All of that is false. Why is it black people are the only people that seek out so many identities? Because you're the only people whose identity has been totally stripped from you. Right. You're the only people who they robbed your entire identity. Right or wrong?
Being able to gather together all information for the benefit of your order as a faithful soldier of the Pope. You have been taught to insidiously plant the seeds of jealousy and hatred between states that were at peace, and incite them to deeds of blood involving them in war with each other, and to create revolutions and civil wars in communities.
Right or wrong? Was not our identity robbed in slavery? Let me tell you something, man. This is an honest white man. And we're talking about a very sensitive topic. Some black people scared to even come near us when we talk about these sensitive topics. But this white man, because he's decided in his heart to be an honest white man, he can just answer honestly whether he agrees or whether it's for or against him. He's just laying it out straight. A lot of atrocities were done here that have not been reconciled. You understand? Salakia. That have not been reconciled in this country. And those things are now going to be reconciled by God. See, America had
provinces and countries that were independent and prosperous, cultivating the arts and the sciences and enjoying the blessings of peace. To take sides with the combatants and to act secretly in concert with your brother Jesuit, who might be engaged on the other side, but openly opposed to that which you might be connected, only that the Church might be the gainer in the end, in the conditions fixed in the treaties for peace, and that in the end justifies the means. out your duties as a spy to gather all statistics, facts and information in your power from every source, to ingratiate yourself into the confidence of the family circle of Protestants and heretics of every class and character, as well as that of the merchant, the banker, the lawyer, amongst the schools and universities, in parliament and legislatures, and in the judiciaries and councils of state, and to be all things to all men for the Pope's sake, whose servants we are unto death. You have received all your instructions heretofore as a novice, a neophyte, and have served as a coadjutor, confessor, and priest.
But this is why the confusion is going on in the body of Israel. The reason that the confusion is going on in the body of Israel, because this whole thing, the foundation that was laid for us to come forward as Israelites, was laid on Masonic principles, was laid on the Rosicrucian principles. A magical society was laid under the Kabbalah order and so forth. That was the inner
priest, but you have not yet been invested with all that is necessary to command in the army of Loyola in the service of the Pope. You must serve the proper time as the instrument and executioner as directed by your superiors, for none can command here who has not consecrated his labours with the blood of the heretic, for without the shedding of blood no man can be saved. Therefore, to fit yourself for your work and make your own salvation sure, you will, in addition to your former oath of obedience to your order and allegiance to the Pope, repeat after me. I promise that and declare that I will, when opportunity presents, make and wage relentless war, secretly or openly, against all Protestants and liberals as I am directed to do, to extirpate and exterminate them from the face of the whole earth, and that I will spare neither age, sex, or condition, and that I will hang, burn, waste, boil, flay, strangle, and bury alive these infamous heretics, rip up the stomachs and wombs of their women, and crush their infants' heads against the walls, in order to annihilate forever their execrable race. That when the same cannot be done openly, I will secretly use the poisoned cup, the strangulating cord, the steel of the poniard, or the leaden bullet, regardless of the honour, rank, dignity, or authority of the person or persons, whatever may be their condition in life, either public or private, as I at any time may be directed to do so by any agent of the Pope or superior of the Brotherhood of the Holy Faith, the Society of Jesus. By reading these words, we gain a full appreciation.
The last time we spoke, we talked about COVID, and the vaccine has come and gone now. For the most part, you got a big backlash at that from some of the Hebrew Israelite brothers and some of the people that's out there saying, yo, why would the commanding general tell us to take the vaccine? You know? So now that you can look back on it, how do you feel about it now? Looking back on all of that when you was telling us to take the vaccine.
Yeah, I feel absolutely amazing, Sarnetta. I feel amazing because anytime you stand up for your people with courage and you do what is not popular and you help your people, man, the feeling is unmatchable. We did get a lot of backlash when I came out. They couldn't believe that I was saying it. But what I was trying to explain back then was, how do you know that it's not a conspiracy to destroy us? Because for sure, they were breaking their necks getting the vaccine. The other man he was breaking his neck, flying all over the place, cutting people off from getting it. Down in Brooklyn, they stole all the vaccines that were supposed to go to black people. They tried to distribute it evenly to people, and what happened? They came in and stole the vaccines. They cut off the North American Indian. They even went up to Canada and went into them areas where the vaccines was being shipped to those natives and all those different people up there. And they went up in there, man, and took those people's vaccines. Meanwhile, they was telling us, oh, you shouldn't take the vaccine. Don't take the vaccine. They're going to make a zombie out of you. You're going to be dead. You're going this. You're going that.
Turn into a homo.
Exactly. They're going to eat your body. Blah, 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 blah. And could they have been putting that out to make us not take the vaccine? They know how it is when black people...
Well, a warm welcome to this talk. It's Wednesday, the 22nd of March. Now, today I'm going to be looking at a paper, and this is the paper here I want to look at. Is there a link between the 2021 COVID-19 vaccine uptake in Europe and 2022 all-cause mortality, not COVID mortality, all-cause mortality. And this study did find such a correlation. Now, let's look at it now. This is the question, that's the paper. Now, this is studied in, this paper's published in Western Norway University of Applied Sciences. Now, in Norway, they have certain freedoms that we don't have in Western countries. We don't have in the UK or the United States. For example, in Norway, you can actually camp anywhere. So there's certain freedoms in Norway that we don't have in other countries. Anyway, getting back to the topic in hand, conflict of interest statements. The authors declare no conflict of interest. So I think we can take it from this that the authors are not being paid huge amounts of money by vested interest, which of course is always good to check. So no vested interest there. The authors say we primarily study a possible link between 2021 COVID-19 vaccination uptake in Europe and all-cause mortality in 2022. So they're correlating vaccines in 2021 for COVID-19 and monthly mortality in 2022. Now, let's be perfectly clear. This is a preprint. This is not a peer-reviewed paper. But I wanted to cover this paper because I think the possibility of this getting published in a mainstream peer-reviewed journal is essentially zero. Leave that there. I don't think it's going to get published in a peer-reviewed journal. If it does, I'll be very surprised and will certainly report on it. But I think it's important to report on it now because this is the whole point of preprints. They are papers for discussion, and we're discussing it now. So, i.e. mortality higher than before the pandemic. So this is taking the mortality in 2022, comparing that to pre-pandemic levels. Now, they analysed 31 countries, January to September 2022. They did point out the importance of analysing the last 3 months in 2022 when they get the full data available for that. This is just where that went up to. 31 EU member states, throwing in Norway, Iceland, Liechtenstein and Switzerland. All-cause mortality, this is a direct quote from the paper, increased more the higher the 2021 vaccine uptake. In other words, countries with more COVID-19 vaccines in 2021 had higher excess mortality in the first 9 months of 2022. This is what we call a positive correlation between vaccination in 2021 and excess deaths in 2022. And they quantify it. There was a 1% point increase in 2021 vaccination rate. So for every 1 point, every 1% that went up, basically the mortality went up by 0.1%. So the mortality in 2022 was 0.105, basically 0.1%. So I consider that number to be huge. 1% increase in vaccination in 2021, 0.1% increase in overall mortality in 2022. It's a huge number, absolutely huge number. When controlling for alternative explanations, the association remained robust. So they remained robust and significant. Now, 2021, all-cause mortality was lower the higher the vaccination uptake. So interestingly, in 2021, the more vaccines people had, the less people died in 2021. But in 2022, it was the opposite. But, and it's a big but, in 2021, when they controlled for other variables, that became a non-significant effect. So there was an inverse correlation between COVID vaccines and all-cause mortality in 2021, but it was not significant after they accounted for quite a few variations that they cleverly accounted for in this paper. This is from data from Eurostat. We've looked at this many times. Official European statistics, check it out for yourself. EU experienced excess mortality in the first 9 months of 2022. We've looked at that before. No question that that is the case, tragically. We're talking about mortality here as if it's some abstract concept. Of course, it's not. It's multiple individual human tragedies and bereavements. This is why we do this. This is of massive importance. COVID-19 vaccination has prevented SARS-CoV-2 related hospital admissions and deaths. So there's evidence that in 2021, May 2021, and 13th of May, so these are both May 2021, and given that these papers were both published in May 2021, they're dealing with data from January, February, March, mostly 2021, very early on in the pandemic, the alpha and delta stages of the pandemic. So evidence that the vaccine was effective from 2021 and 2021, that's from the Lancet, that's from British Medical Journal. So vaccines were preventing SARS coronavirus 2 related hospital admissions and deaths, specifically, of course, to SARS coronavirus 2, not talking about all-cause mortality. Says who? Don't take my word for things. Well, as always, we give evidence. Evidence for myocarditis and pericarditis post-vaccine. This one's from Journal of the American Medical Association Cardiology. And note, we're now into 2022, so this is a year later. Say this is 6-7 months later, 25th of January 2022. So we can clearly see that times have changed. A recent study falsified suspected association between the two diagnoses, that's myocarditis and pericarditis, and COVID-19 virus infection. So Journal of Clinical Medicine, that's that publication there. They found post-COVID-19 infection was not associated with either myocarditis or pericarditis. So that makes us a bit curious about where the increase in myocarditis and pericarditis came from, if it's not caused from the natural infection. Vaccine uptake is the percentage of the... No, this is how they got the data. Vaccine uptake, they took as the percentage of the total population that's received a primary course by week 52 of 2021. In other words, this only goes up to the end of 2021. Now, here are the countries they studied, and these are the percentages of the primary courses. Now, of course, all of this is in the article. I just put this here to show you what a huge epidemiological study this actually is. So, percentage of primary courses by the end of 2021. And that's what they took their correlations from. So low in Bulgaria, going all the way up to Iceland and Ireland, 76.6%. Countries that you might be interested in, you can see there, of course, the UK no longer a member of the European Union. But we will be at very much the higher end of this. And of course, they accounted for population size, needless to say. Their conclusion here, direct quote from the paper, the interaction between vaccine uptake and time passed in months since the beginning of 2022 is strongly significant, and implies that the mortality increase and the higher the vaccine uptake, so implies that the mortality increases the higher the vaccine uptake.
In these words, we gain a full appreciation of their shocking tactics, which can be summed up like this. Their intention was to become part of the faith, system, culture or group that they intended to destroy. Then from within, they would sow seeds of hate and division. Their method was to present themselves as one thing on the surface, but to be secretly working away with each other for a very different purpose behind the scenes. They would sometimes pretend to be enemies on opposing sides in public, but behind the scenes they were actually cohorts, working together towards the same goal. This type of attack is sometimes referred to as becoming a fifth column, meaning that the most effective way to attack something is not from the north or the south or the east or the west, but from within. Cicero once said, "A nation can survive its fools and even the ambitious, but it cannot survive treason from within. An enemy at the gates is less formidable, for he is known and he carries his banners openly. But the traitor moves among those within the gates freely, his sly whispers rustling through all the alleys, heard in the very halls of government itself. For the traitor appears not traitor, he speaks in the accents familiar to his victims, and he wears their face and their garments, and he appeals to the baseness that lies deep in the hearts of all men. He rots the soul of a nation, he works secretly and unknown in the night to undermine the pillars of a city. He infects the body politic so that it can no longer resist. A murderer is less to be feared. The fifth column tactic is of course a trademark of Satan. It was the very tactic he used to persuade a third of the angels to fall with him and to become his army of demons. He went around whispering in the ears of anyone who would listen to turn them against God. More recently, ex-witches have spoken of being assigned to local churches by their coven with the aim of being involved in the congregation on the surface, but all the while secretly working against it from within, frustrating its aims and unity. If something is attacked from without, it will put up its defenses and fight back. But if, by using deceit, the attacker can become part of the thing it wishes to destroy and gains the trust of those involved, they can take it down from within. But could we really expect any human being to carry out the acts described in this monstrous Jesuit oath? Well, remember that the spiritual exercises were designed to eliminate all human emotion and to turn the men into machines. And just as demonic influence was so clearly at work in Loyola's cave experience, so they are involved in the spiritual exercises. H. Boehmer in Les Jesuits writes, "We imbue unto him spiritual forces which he would find very difficult to eliminate later. These forces can come up again to the surface, sometimes after years of not even mentioning them, and become so imperative that the will finds itself unable to oppose any obstacle and has to follow their irresistible impulse." In other words, through the spiritual exercises, the Jesuit initiate becomes possessed and finds themselves compelled to act according to the will of these demonic forces within.
But this is why the confusion is going on in the body of Israel. The reason that the confusion is going on in the body of Israel, because this whole thing, the foundation that was laid for us to come forward as Israelites, was laid on Masonic principles, was laid on the Rosicrucian principles, a magical society, was laid under the Kabbalah order and so forth. That was the inner circle.